Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Biblical Preaching Podcast.
Well done.
I've been practicing that to get that in the right tone. It's good to have you with us, and it's good to be with Peter again.
Hi, Mike.
Hello.
I was calling you Michael in the last one we recorded, and I don't know why, because I never call you Michael.
No, that's fine. Some people do. Well, my mum does. But,
yeah. Don't want to make you nervous.
We don't want to. Yeah, we don't want to. We don't want to go there just now. We want to talk exactly that about being nervous.
Oh,
there you go.
what a segue.
A great segue. We understand and appreciate very much that preaching can be nerve-wracking, and many preachers, maybe all preachers, at one point have been nervous. Maybe we should be nervous every time. We'll talk about that too. But just having the sense of being nervous is a very common experience and emotion in preaching, and so we thought, well, let's talk about it and have some thoughts about what causes nervousness, how to maybe not eliminate, but just how to deal with nerves in a helpful, faithful to God way. So I think we could share the times we felt most nervous, but that would go on too long.
I think it's interesting.
What makes you nervous? Yeah.
I think it's interesting that people can watch somebody who's preaching confidently, say, and assume there's no nerves and there's never been. It's easy for you, But actually, I grew up 100% committed to not standing in front of people and speaking. Just absolutely not. That's terrifying. I was shy. I didn't want to be exposed like that, and so there were nerves initially, and there are nerves ongoingly. Those two may be two different things. The initial nerves are more problematic. The ongoing nervousness, seriousness about what you're doing is highly appropriate. And so, I wouldn't want people to, look at someone who's a capable communicator in public and think, well, they don't have nerves. Yeah, I bet they did. And I bet they do. Yeah,
I'm sure. and I kind of get the sense, at least with me, that there's almost a sense of there's good nerves and bad nerves, or things that are good or bad that are making me nervous, I should say. So there's good and bad. So there's the things of being nervous that are true. Like preaching is a big deal, and it's an important thing. But also, I think probably more often than not, if I'm nervous, it's from selfishness, in the sense of I'm nervous because I don't want to do a bad job because people will think I'm rubbish. And I want people to like me. I'm absolutely a people pleaser. And so I'm nervous that I won't please people. Yeah. And so there's kind of nerves aren't as simple as just they're nerves or they're not. Yeah. There's a kind of, we need some self-reflection as Christians, really, to say, well, what is it that's making me nervous? So before we even think about how to deal with it, it's where's it coming from?
Yeah. So there's like pride nerves, like you're describing. I want to look good. I don't want to look bad. But there's other, like, maybe more legitimate nerves, like who's present. Maybe you're touching, your message is touching an issue that could get a reaction from certain people. So I'd understand why you'd feel nervous about preaching that with them there. Or it could be that things have happened, you're not as prepared as you wanted to be. You feel underprepared, and so there's an added layer of nervousness. Yeah. That makes sense.
Just that, even the isolation of preaching. Yeah, is you're one person stood in front of more than one person. Sometimes a lot more than one person, but you're stood up in front of more than one person. And you're standing on your own, and that will generate nerves.
Yeah.
And
so nerves can have a negative impact. I think that's kind of obvious. But let's just think about what some of those things are. When you're nervous, you are more likely to what? Well, number one, rush. I think for some people, when they're nervous, they just go rapid, and they sort of lose a self-awareness of how they're coming across. And that's just not effective communication. Now, if this is your first time preaching and you rush a bit, people will be very gracious. But long term, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, and especially if it's from the sense of, I don't want to be here, so I'm going to do this as quickly as possible. Yeah, that's not helping anyone.
Right. And you can also kind of have the opposite. So instead of going fast, you can just freeze.
Just stop. Yeah.
And so you can stop literally, not know what to say because you're just frozen in front of people. That tends to be the sort of 5-year-old doing a speech at school, just, eyes wide and nothing comes out. But you can also freeze in the sense of losing the awareness of, or the variety of your own voice, your energy, your gestures. You just sort of become monotonous, and sort of your voice sounds the same, and you just kind of get into a clipped rhythm. Like, that's a form of freezing. You've sort of frozen your ability to vary it, and that can be nerves because you're so fixated on, I've got to get this right, I've got to get this right. But this includes delivery. It's not just what you're saying.
Yeah.
When you're not nervous, you can actually be thinking about your content and about how it's coming across and the facial responses of people, and hang on, I think I've lost them, let me adjust. So there's plenty more capacity within us than just absolute sheer panic, kind of tunnel vision focus on what's my next word.
Yeah. And sometimes we can think we have to do something almost drastic or dramatic to sort of snap ourselves out of it. So we'll say something stupid, or we'll try to say, there's that sort of overcompensating almost.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
One you mentioned before when we were chatting about this is becoming overly apologetic.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't say that just now.
So yeah, that sense of, I feel awkward being here, so I'm going to try to lessen my awkwardness by apologizing to you, who actually weren't thinking, why are you up there?
Yeah. Yeah, because it must be everyone knows I'm nervous, so I'll apologise. Well, people probably don't.
And also, they honestly, a lot of them would much rather it's you than them.
Yeah, that's what it is. So the apologising is the last thing. I think just that, in my mind was just that constant, I'm really sorry I said that too quick. I'm just apologising at every point. It's a sign of nervousness, and we try to overcome it, but it's just not helpful.
Yeah, and then also I think maybe unless you think of others, we'll just land it on this one. Yeah. But the other big negative about nervousness and nerves in preaching is that it's contagious. And so if you're nervous, to begin with, I think especially if you're a beginner, if you're young, your listeners will be gracious. They'll be willing you to succeed. But actually, nervousness can be contagious. And so ultimately, it's better to not have it in an overt sense, because if you're nervous, people pick up on that, and then they become nervous. And a nervous crowd are not listening in the same way as a comfortable crowd.
Yeah. So when we've diagnosed our nervousness and kind of trying to avoid those things, before we think of sort of good things to do, good tips or advice or whatever, and how to deal with nerves, what are some bad things that you've heard or done? Or
well, even before that, there's actually some positive sides to nervousness.
Yes,
maybe let's go there before we go to tips. Because nervousness is not all bad, right? So the fact that you're nervous before you preach is probably, hopefully, going to make you pray and mean it. That's a good thing, right? So you do want to be prayerful. It makes you less self-reliant. Mm-hmm. I'd much rather hear somebody who's a little bit nervous and prayerful rather than someone who's overconfident and cocky. That's a negative vibe. And so if nerves make you take it more seriously, maybe nerves are your friend, not just your enemy.
Yeah.
And so I don't want us to kind of think the goal is elimination of all nerves. I think the goal is to get past those initial nerves that are distracting and unhelpful to our listeners, and maybe get to a settled place of, I take preaching seriously. So in some settings, if I'm preaching in a church and it's not my own church, on some occasions I'll feel extra nervous. I'll feel some of those nerves that I haven't felt for quite a number of years, in terms of that, just how's this going to go? But that's okay. It helps me pray, helps me focus, helps me not go in overly self-reliant. But I don't want to be at the other extreme of never feeling any nerves. Oh, this is my church, I'm fine. Oh, this is familiar, I'm okay. Actually, this is serious.
Yeah.
Like people's lives, people's eternities, people's marriages. I mean, I'm going to make myself nervous talking like this, but there's a lot that's at play when we're preaching, and thankfully it's not up to us to fix any of that. It's God's work, but we're involved in God's work, and so that there's a place for nerves, but maybe kind of we're taking preaching seriously is a good way to see it, rather than I am crippled by these and I'm unable to communicate effectively.
Yeah, so I like that what you said about the goal isn't not be nervous. The goal is to be faithful to God in our preaching, even when we are nervous. I think that's helpful. So there'll be lots written in different places about what to do when, I guess, particularly speaking in public. A lot to do when you're speaking in public and nervous. That is not helpful advice for preachers. So typically, if you feel nervous about standing up in front of people, imagine them naked, and that'll stop you feeling nervous.
No, it won't. It'll start you feeling something else.
Odd, yeah.
Odd, yeah. Like, yeah, you don't want to imagine people naked at any point in the day, and just don't go there. That's not helpful. I know why people say it. It's like try to sort of break the ice a little bit and go, they're not in a position of power.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm sure we can do better than that.
Yeah.
What else do people say? They say, well, don't lock your knees. That's good advice. If you're genuinely nervous and you lock your knees, you may pass out. So, like, some advice that's general is okay, but imagine them naked. Let's not go there. Look above people's heads. I've heard that. Like, don't make eye contact.
Don't look at them. Yeah.
Look above them. Don't do that. It makes you look weird. It takes away all the smilers that you could be looking at. I mean, I think maybe a sort of modified version of that is find the people that help you feel less nervous. Because there'll be some people in a crowd who, when you look at them, you feel your heart go faster because you're nervous. Yeah. And there's other people that make you go, oh, yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Find the people that smile and encourage you facially and lean on them a bit.
Yeah.
But that's much better than looking over the tops of people's heads. That's called not communicating very well.
Yeah, and the whole, we're preaching to real people, so we want to be engaging in the room with people that are really preaching. Another thing that I think I've heard, or maybe so I do, that there's a danger for being nervous, is that I don't know if it's you focusing so much on what you're saying that you just end up like reading, or there's sort of a sticking point there. I think that just have a script and stick to it. Don't worry about other people in the room. Just but again, that's not communicating well with the people that are in the room. If you're just kind of looking down at a piece of paper the whole time, I think you're not communicating to the room.
I think if you're doing a eulogy at a relative's funeral and you never do public speaking, of course, read it.
Yeah,
it's totally fine. Nobody minds.
Yeah.
Like there's emotion, all the rest of it. Just read it. It's great. They'll be blessed that you did it. But if you're preaching, and you're preaching more than never, like periodically even, if you just say, well, I'm nervous, I'm going to read it, you're establishing a pattern that you've then got to break if you want to get out of that. And so I would say in a preaching setting, don't default to reading. At least have notes and run through them so that you're really familiar with them, and then have your notes for, emotional support if you need them. But by reading, it's like you're learning one set of skills that you've then got to unlearn if you want to move away from that. So I think there's a difference between a one-off, like a funeral, and preaching semi-regularly. I'd be hesitant to suggest reading.
Yeah.
So what would I suggest? Number one, pray.
It has to be.
That's the main one, right? Pray beforehand, pray during. You do find once your nerves lessen from sheer panic, that there is some capacity of your brain to be thinking as you're speaking. Use that capacity to pray as you're going. Help me, Lord. Keep me going.
Yeah, like I tend to know the time period when I feel more nervous, and it's not actually when I'm at the front. It's like a little bit before. But I think when we, if we feel nervous, pray. If we feel extra nervous because it's a different situation or different thing, just extra pray. Like it's not more scientific than that. Just the level of your nervousness should be equal to praying, because ultimately it's it's God's work, it's God's message, we're God's messengers. The change in people's hearts is really up to God. I'm not twisting people's arms. There's all these things that I'm nervous about, and ultimately, like, it's God's work. But also, all the things that I'm nervous about that are sort of those negative kind of selfish reasons of why I'm nervous. I need to pray about that too and say, okay, Lord, ultimately, my ultimate goal is for people to think great things about you and not good things about me. And it's not just, help them to forget me, but just actually I don't want to get in the way of what you're doing. So speak through me. That's kind of, whatever you're nervous about, you're absolutely right. Turn it into prayer.
So pray, and then don't think that prayer makes practice inappropriate. I know some people think, I shouldn't practice because I'm going to rely on God.
Spiritual thing.
Yeah, it's a spiritual thing. I don't get that. I think, why wouldn't you practice? You're standing up in front of people speaking, which is a totally unnatural thing, and I find honestly that there are times where I'm running through a message and I get stuck, and I'm so glad that I found that I was stuck when I'm speaking to an empty room, rather than 10 minutes into a message with dozens or hundreds of eyes looking at me.
Thinking on your feet is something to be nervous about.
Yeah. So practice, run it through. Whether if you're reading a manuscript, practice it so it's familiar. If you're using notes, practice it so it's familiar. If you're preaching without notes, practice it so it's familiar. I think there's something about having heard the message through my own ears, because it's come out of my lips, that helps me then when I come back to it in a less ideal environment. If I'm running through a message, typically I'm either in this room, kind of in my own study, or I'm in the car, somewhere where I'm ignoring everything around me, or in a field or something. It's like ideal conditions to just flow the message. And then suddenly I'm in a room with distractions and chairs scraping the floor, and, people physically present, and, technical issues with the microphone or whatever. That ratchets up the complexity of preaching, and so having it be familiar at that point is super helpful. So I'm not having to employ all of my mental emotional energy to try to keep hold of what I'm trying to say. I already know what I'm trying to say because I've already said it a few times.
And part of practice too is looking over and reviewing the preaching that you've just done, is almost seeing this time that I'm preaching is practice for the next time. Now, it's a real thing. It's not practice, but it's seeing it as, practice. So when I listen back or watching back, you can, okay, well, I did this and I wish I didn't. So have that as a practice thing for the next time I'm with it. And then that leads us, I think, to the third thing. Another P is the persisting, is that just keep preaching.
Yeah.
Like, just because you're being nervous and nerves affect you in your preaching, don't necessarily take that as a reason to never preach ever again.
Right.
Necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, some people probably should never preach ever again, but that's not for us to judge or for you to figure out, really. It's just, but I'm nervous on this occasion isn't a reason to not preach again. If you've been asked to do it, people have appreciated something to encourage it, you've enjoyed time in the Word, and you've, people respond in a positive way, then probably should preach again. Now, you might need to lie down in a dark room for 24 hours to recover. Okay, be assured that it's not going to be that bad forever.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's the point, that, it can be a really taxing experience. I don't think people realize how tiring preaching can be, because you're giving so much in such a vulnerable way. But it's also true that over time, some of those beginner nerves lessen. You'll find increased mental capacity, increased ability to communicate, increased freedom. But that comes with time. It comes with persisting and going again and going again. As long as you're improving, keep going.
Yeah. And it's like we said, we're not saying do all you can to not be nervous, but the things that you're nervous about at the beginning will be different to how the things you're nervous about later, God willing. And so then, the dealing with your nerves and the praying about it. Like, I hope I'm always nervous when I preach.
At some level.
Yeah, not like kind of, but I'm nervous in a different way now to 20 years ago or 25 years ago when I started, and that's good. That's encouraging.
Yeah.
But I'm conscious that actually there's some element of nervousness that will drive me to the Lord, or should drive me to the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, just to wrap up, let's go to the most obvious Bible verse possible. You might not have thought of it, but it's so relevant because Paul, writing to Timothy, who was not 12 at this point, Timothy had traveled with Paul probably something like 15 years by the time 2 Timothy's written. But even so, Paul writes to him and he says in chapter 1, verse 6, "For this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and self-control." So there's a younger guy, kind of the person being mentored by Paul, and Paul's acknowledging, you're new to it, you need to fan it into flame, there's a process to go through, and he highlights the fear element. And I don't think that that's as simple as Timothy was a nervous public speaker. I think there was lots of complexity to fear in their context. But it's still a good point that, fan it into flame. There is a process. You can move forward. And there's a faith involved. We're trusting God. Even though fear may be what we feel, we're trusting God because he has given us power, love, self-control. That's the spirit he's given to us. And so let's lean into that, even in the little matter of our own preaching. We may not be facing all sorts of complexities, but we are facing something very serious, which is to stand in front of people with the word of God and say, "Thus says the Lord." That's big business, right? That's a serious thing to be involved in. And so we want to do that faithfully. We want to do that looking to the Lord, expecting him to grow us and leaning into that growth ourselves.
Great. Well, there's lots to chew on there, lots to ponder. So we'll end our time together there. But again, if you have any comments or any things you want to bring up in conversation, just you can engage with the podcast on audio and also on video on YouTube, and you can email us if you have questions or comments or ideas for the things to talk about. But yeah, let's be people who lean on the Lord and preach the word.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate every positive review, like, share, and comment. And thank you for praying for us. We hope you will join us again next time on the Biblical Preaching Podcast.